I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the video, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in the Blue Beetle movie. So if you haven't seen that movie yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to any video on-demand service that you use to rent or buy digital copies of movies, check that out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from the Blue Beetle movie, it's Jon Rico.
Hola.
Hola.
How we doing?
Doing really good. Now, we're always excited when we get to recap stuff and do this, but every once in a while, like we can both pretty much have the same stuff that we want to talk about from something that we're recapping. And I think it just so happens with the Blue Beetle movie, we both enjoyed the exact same parts of it. And not only that, but like the actual like sentiments of the movie, we kind of both, really enjoyed. And we were both pointing out pretty much the exact same things of this. And I mean, so it's just going to be us kind of agreeing back and forth about the parts that we that stood out and the stuff that we really enjoyed about this movie. To kick it off, I really like Jaime as like the main character and obviously as Blue Beetle in the movie. But I gotta say Rudy was probably one of my favorite, I don't even know if I can say side character in any, origin superhero movie. It just what George Lopez did with the comedy there and just having he is the conspiracy theory character of the movie, and just every moment that he is on screen, I think he shined the outshined everybody else.
It's like Batman stuff. Batman's a fascist.
And that's not to take away anything from our main character of Jaime and his main story and him leading kind of this movie and everything like that, because he had a very strong character line and how he had to build up to actually be a superhero and stuff like that. So it's taking nothing away from that, but Rudy was absolutely my favorite character of this, and I cannot say that enough how much I enjoyed George Lopez's performance in this movie and everything like that. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions from the Blue Beetle movie?
I love this movie. This movie is like a shining example of when you take a familiar story format and the comic book origin story has been told to death in movies, since back to Spider-Man, of course, and the X-Men. But it's when you take that familiar format and you just add a strong lead character in Jolo Madueña and his take on Jaime Reyes, it's just phenomenal. And then you add a really great supporting cast and his family and all Jenny Cord, all these characters, and just really great all around, kind of mostly unknown cast too, when you think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just some really great action, just some great nods to Mexican culture in general, and some overall nods to the overall DC world that helped the movie kind of stay on its own in terms of not attaching itself to the old DCEU, or even now, because we're going to take it off into the forward with the DCU, right? But it also is just a nice kind of self-contained story within the DC universe. So I really like the way they kind of incorporated that there too. And so yeah, I just enjoyed this movie from beginning to end. It was really funny. It had a lot of heart and some great action on top of it. And then, so what more can you ask for?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That almost goes perfectly into my takeaways. So you want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick this off. The reason I want to get into this because you were already kind of starting to mention this, and this is perfect. I don't know if you remember this movie. It came out a few years ago at this point. The Mitchells versus the Machines was by
Yeah,
the
I haven't
same
seen it
people.
yet, but I heard of it.
Oh, it's so good. It's by the same people that did Into the Spider-Verse. So
Okay.
it's like that kind of
Gordon
animation
Miller?
style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good movie, but it's not central focused on one person. It's a family. It's family driven movie type of thing, and it's a situation of where the Mitchell's family have to take on a bunch of robots and stuff. I'm not gonna give anything away because I know you didn't see it yet, but hey, maybe we'll do a recap of that when you actually get to see it. But on the other side of things, I also have to go with what I know, and I know a little bit more, kind of Marvel side of things. And I was getting the vibes of Miss Marvel almost, where it was, that was a story about, Miss Marvel becoming a superhero and stuff like that. But it also had, her family around her and seeing, the support of a family system in place. And so it wasn't just central focused on our one main character becoming a superhero. It was how their family can support them. And I think that is one of the biggest things in this movie, in the Blue Beetle movie. We have Jaime's family total support. I mean, at one point, they had to go rescue him type of thing. So like we get to see all of these, not only that, but we get to see all of these kind of fleshed out characters. It wasn't just, oh, that's Jaime's family, and we're gonna have a couple of quirky things where he has to cover up that he found some artifact that's turning him into a superhero type of thing. We actually get all of the engagement between Jaime and his family, and we have these characters that are real people. They're not just background characters. They're not just one-dimensional characters. They all have heart and real elements to them, each one of them type of thing. And like I said, Rudy was one of my favorite characters because he had like such goofy tendencies. He was conspiracy theory, and he had like his truck that was his funny name for his truck. You know what I mean? Like all of these characters had like their own real grounded reality.
What is he talking about?
He's talking about this.
Oh, I forgot how bad it looks.
I've seen worse.
I really liked that, and I really liked having a superhero origin movie, but also having this theme of family support. Just like you said, this movie had a lot of heart, and that all stemmed from seeing the heart and support of this family. And it was it was just really cool, and to be able to have a funny superhero action movie with heart is kind of all you can ask for, I guess, in a single movie. You kind of get everything you want in one movie. So I can't say enough how much I really enjoyed that aspect of things, and I really it made the origin story. It's familiar because we've seen time and time again an origin story for a superhero, for especially a younger superhero, kind of having to take control and come into his own type of thing. But we don't always see a support family. Like I said, we had it in Miss Marvel, we've had it a couple other times, but this is a real very strong support system, and I really liked having that element in there. It really added so much to this movie. But Rico, what were some of your takeaways from the Blue Beetle movie?
Yeah, the family element is really the strongest, kind of thematical element in the movie by far. Coming from a Mexican family myself, I can tell you that the level of support that your family has for you is exactly what you see in this movie. Like when he goes off from the job interview and they're all there cheering him on, and he goes, "Yeah, they don't get out very often." And then even in the end, when you learn his grandma's a complete badass or whatever, but she's got to be the one that picks up the whole family when they're all down, they're at their lowest moment. And she goes, "Okay, now's not the time. We're gonna go save Jaime." And then when they go and do it, he goes, "Now we cry." And so that's some really powerful stuff in that movie. You could tell the movie's made with a lot of love for the culture, and really just the way it drives the characters' motivations too, and the way they have the Carapax is the villain, how he's kind of like the anti version of that theme, where he's obviously there to kind of drive in the home, like your love for your family makes you weak, and of course that's obviously what drives him. And of course the way they handle that character is really great too, because his whole redeeming arc is how he kind of remembers his love for his family, and
Yeah.
that leads into how kind of help bring him back to the light, and he does that great sacrifice at the end. So that was actually a really cool character that I wish we would gotten more depth on, because he's just kind of there, it's just like this brooding villain for most of it, but he's got a really deep story that was there that wasn't really revealed until the end. So it would have been cool to spend some more time with him and kind of get some more of that backstory.
Yeah.
And another thing I loved in this movie was the practical effects. The suit was probably one of the best comic book suits in any movie. When you see all, if you remember seeing all the shooting shot, like the behind the scenes footage, like that was a real suit that he was wearing, and you have the needed CGI you needed, to do the effects and all, like the flying and obviously him creating the swords and all that. But for the most part, like the effects were very like really cool and practical looking, and I think it looked really awesome. I really like the way they were able to kind of create expression within the mask, without having to give him a mouth, even though sometimes it looked like his mouth was opening too. So, which is kind of a cool little nod to the Injustice game where his character kind of like has a mouth. And so it's actually really cool. And I think even in Young Justice he has like a mouth too. But yeah, I think they did a really good job of using the effects in this movie. Especially when you look at a movie like The Flash, which had a higher budget and didn't, kind of got shit on for the level of effects that they put out. And then you see this movie with a lot lesser budget and it looks amazing. So yeah, I really love that. There's some great music in this movie as always. And yeah, there's a lot to look forward to with this character as far as story potential.
Yeah, I can't wait to kind of see where we go from here, basically. And I mean, I'll say this even before we get into predictions. And I mean, I'm not going to talk over anything that we're going to talk about with predictions, but coming from not knowing too much about Blue Beetle, the character at all, I'm excited to kind of be surprised of where we can see him. But I know you know way more about Blue Beetle, the actual character. So before I get too far, you want to get to some predictions?
Yeah, let's go.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick us off with predictions?
Okay, so since this movie kind of stands on its own as far as like the way it told its story and not really tying itself to too many references to the DCU and stuff. James Gunn's already confirmed that this is one of the characters that's going to transfer over into the new DCU,
Nice.
Which is very exciting because there's a lot of potential for him. There's a few different ways that they can go with this. Obviously, the post-credit scene, we have the kind of nod to Ted Kord still being out there somewhere, obviously still alive, and we don't know who's going to be playing him yet. That's still kind of like a mystery in and of itself. But there's obviously that whole story, right? That you can go as far as like how you bring him into the DCU and kind of using that storyline as like an introduction. That could also be your gateway into how you incorporate Blue Beetle working with Booster Gold. If you don't know who Booster Gold is, he's a hilarious superhero from the future who goes back in time to kind of do these heroic acts so that he can be seen as a hero because he's kind of a low life from the future. Really funny character, and he has a great relationship with Blue Beetle. So that's obviously something you can go with those two characters. Hopefully it's the Ted Core version working with them. That'd be pretty cool. And then of course the mystery around the scarab itself. Like obviously in the second movie, you kind of dive into more of like the scarab and its purpose, and obviously its relationship with Jaime. First of all, we gotta give a shout out to Becky G as Kajida, the voice of the scarab. I think the way that those two characters vibed off each other was a really fun aspect. How of course it's obviously like just this straight robotic voice kind of responding at first, and then as they get to know each other and become more like more one, symbiotic. She starts speaking to him in Spanish, and she learns more about how Jaime thinks and kind of starts speaking to him accordingly like that. So,
You ready, Kaji?
Vamos a partirles la madre.
Come on, let's do it!
I really like that dynamic between those two, I guess characters. Kaji does a character to me at this point, but you have the mystery around the scarab and the Reach. So the Reach is basically like this organization of other like scarab like creatures. Like so, if you remember the opening credit, just showed like the scarab coming to Earth and it bounced off this green rock, which is their green beam, which is supposed to be a Green Lantern beam. So they kind of introduced them as kind of like these kind of like enemies to the Green Lantern Corps, but they're basically the scarabs are looking to take over worlds, finding hosts and stuff like that. So other hosts of other scarabs kind of come into play. You see like a black beetle, a green beetle, stuff like that. So it'd be kind of cool to bring in more of this intergalactic story into the Blue Beetle story as well, and it'd be fun to explore that in the DCU.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I kind of already got into it with big takeaways. I not knowing too much about the character, I kind of don't know kind of where he could pop up next. But just in what you were describing, number one, I'm all for, I've heard of Brewster Gold. I think his character as a character is so funny, and I would love to see that
Oh, yeah.
in the DCU. As long as we get somebody that can really play a good version of that. But the way you were just describing the Scarabs in general almost seemed like kind of like Venom.
Right. It's
thing.
symbiotic. Yeah, they're very much
Right.
a blend. Yeah.
So I was already kind of thinking about that, especially because like, we found out throughout the movie that, it was the Scarab was connecting into him, to his brain and stuff like that. So I was thinking more and more about that. But yeah, I mean, we could very easily have a storyline where, another Scarab host is a bad version and, and Jaime has to, fight that, but we're fighting another version of another Scarab. So like, it's the same power levels and stuff like that. So he has to team up with someone else to kind of, overpower it, basically, type of thing.
Almost kind of like the Miles storyline in Across the Spider-Verse, where he's doing like it's the Spider Society, but in this case, it's kind of like the Beetle Society, and they have more nefarious plans, and he's going to kind of find a way to battle along with the Scarab, but also battle against this other, army of Scarabs, basically. So yeah, it's a pretty cool little thing they can do. He's basically the Spider-Man meets Venom if they're kind of combined into one.
Yeah, I mean, and it what's really crazy is, and we didn't like kind of discuss how we were connecting this kind of stuff, but like that's how I kind of look at Jaime as a character in general. Anyway, I was looking at him as, kind of a younger superhero, almost like, a Spider-Man or a Miss Marvel, who needs to, come into their own, but needs to work with someone who is kind of already started to take on bigger threats so that he can be elevated to a level of, being able to kind of be in, I'm going to say MCU, but be in the Avengers, like be in that Justice League level threats and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, if I highly recommend for anyone if this is your first introduction to Blue Beetle, definitely check out the Young Justice animated series because Jaime is very heavily featured in that, especially the Reach. So if you want to learn more about like how that whole storyline's going to work, that's definitely a good place to start. And of course, the comics are always a good place to start too. There's some great stuff regarding the Jaime version, and then you could do the Blue Beetle Booster Gold books those are pretty fun as well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot out there for Jaime fans if you're just looking to get into new material.
Very cool. Yeah, I am going to kick it off with the actual series that's on. I believe it's on Max right now.
Yeah, Young Justice is on Max.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick it off with that, and then maybe from there go to the comics. But maybe we should have a new section on our recaps where we put recommendations.
That'd be fun.
That would be a cool section to have, because then we can, we just like you said, like you're coming from an area of like the best places to check out stuff, and there's going to be times where maybe I'll know a little bit things, but we can give everybody recommendations, because I like your recommendations to kind of go backwards and find out more about the character. I definitely did it with Moon Knight, and I've done it with other characters in the past too. And I like kind of getting attached to the character by watching. Obviously, what grabs me first, it's obviously going to be a big budget movie type of thing, like especially with the MCU and now kind of the DCU and stuff like that. But yeah, when I do kind of get interested in a character, especially like with Jaime and Blue Beetle, now I am looking for more material to kind of go to. So yeah, I think moving forward we should have a recommendation section.
Yeah. That's what makes me really excited about James Gunn's DCU too, because that guy's a big comics fan, and he's going to give these characters that don't get the chance to shine in this big picture spotlight. He's going to give them that chance, like the way he did the Suicide Squad, and of course the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like he's not going to like obviously he's doing the Superman movie, but I think he does a great job of introducing kind of these off the wall characters that comic fans love, but we just don't get to see in the that high budget big picture spotlight.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, you brought up Guardians of the Galaxy. I can talk for forever. Like they were unknowns at the point that movie came out.
Even the comic fans, they're like, wow, really them.
But anyway, just like we always say, That's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of the Blue Beetle movie? And what do you think is next for Jaime and his family moving forward in the new DCU? We already know for sure that he's going to be there. He's connected to the DCU with some of a few of our old characters, but everybody else is going to be new. It's so exciting to kind of just, think about what the DCU is going to be moving forward and where these characters are going to end up next. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Popping Off presents That Recap Show.